Hey guys, there are many thoughts about meaning behind Miyazaki's film, A Boy and the Heron. There's so many guesses about metaphors, so here are the answers. The documentary about Miyazaki while he was working on the film came out from NHK on December 16, 2023. In the documentary, Miyazaki clearly stated that the heron represents producer Toshio Suzuki. Kiriko is Michio Yasuda, who was a color designer at Studio Ghibli. And the uncle embodies Isao Takahata, the director of Grave of the Fireflies and producer of Nausicaa, who co-founded Ghibli with Miyazaki. I really enjoyed the documentary because it offered a different perspective compared to other documentaries and interview of Miyazaki. It revealed his weakness, his fear of aging, and his journey towards acceptance. Like Mahito in A Boy and the Heron, who accept his malice in the film. I'm going to talk about documentary and reveal what A Boy and the Heron is actually about. The documentary began with a joke or perhaps a serious exchange between Miyazaki and an interviewer. Interviewer said, "You declared retirement, so why did you start again?" Miyazaki said, "Because I forgot." Interviewer replied, "Huh?" Miyazaki said, "I forgot, that's why." In the summer of 2017, he started working on a new film. The Japanese title is 君たちはどう生きるか, meaning How Do You Live, inspired by a Japanese novel of the same name. The film is titled A Boy and the Heron in the United States. After Miyazaki decided to make this new film, Takahata Isao passed away the following spring in April 2018. Miyazaki was profoundly affected by Takahata's death, repeatedly expressing how much he missed him. According to producer Suzuki, Miyazaki always had one-sided love for Takahata. In his book, Shigoto Douraku, Suzuki mentioned that Miyazaki makes his film just for one viewer, Takahata. So Miyazaki lost the one person in the world who really wanted to show this film to. Miyazaki mentioned Takahata is like Daemon from Princess Mononoke to him, like a curse that has always stick to him even after Takahata's death. So A Boy and the Heron is like Miyazaki's inner struggle of trying to get out of Takahata's curse and to find a new direction. So Miyazaki started making the film for himself after he lost Takahata. For the first 2 months, he spent his time struggling to start the storyboard. Then he finally illustrated a single character that was the old man in the tower, the uncle, who is Takahata. Miyazaki had been spending time thinking of Takahata, imagining what he was doing in that tower. So what the uncle was doing in the tower in the film, such as tending to pelicans and orchestrating parrots, symbolized Miyazaki's interpretation for Takahata's lifelong pursuits and the idea of idealistic world or perfection. Okay, so why Takahata is so special to Miyazaki? Miyazaki met Takahata while at Toei Animation when he was 22, and Takahata was 27. Miyazaki described himself at that time as intensely introverted and depressed. Miyazaki said that even while he was walking on the train station, he would forget which direction he was heading to. But meeting Takahata changed young Miyazaki. Working with Takahata on Adventure of Horrors was life-changing for Miyazaki. He admired the way Takahata incorporates ideas into narratives, give characters emotional depth, and portrayed daily life in their creations. Miyazaki finally started to find his direction of what he wanted to do as an animator. According to Suzuki, Miyazaki even imitated Takahata's handwriting. When Miyazaki felt trapped by pursuit of Takahata's vision of perfection, he broke off and started his own project, Future Boy Conan, exploring narrative and style beyond what he had previously attempted with Takahata. However, in episode 8, he ran out of energy and couldn't continue drawing the storyboard. It was Takahata who stepped in, enriching the storyline and helping the series become a masterpiece of Japanese anime. Then he started working with Takahata again. But Takahata at the time was placing his trust in Hoshiyumi Kondo, who later directed Whisper of the Heart. Miyazaki was jealous. I mean, really jealous. That's the time he met Toshio Suzuki and made the comic Nausicaa with the Valley of the Wind. By the way, if you haven't read, I highly recommend to read it. And he started working on the film Nausicaa with the Valley of the Wind. One day, Miyazaki asked Suzuki to go to drink, and he started drink sake and cried, saying, "I spent all my 15 years on Takahata, but I didn't get any return," and told Suzuki, "I want Takahata to be the producer of the film." It's like having a director become the producer, the making hands-off role to show him the tough side of the job. That would be my motivation for making the film. So motivation for making Nausicaa was his revenge to Takahata. After Miyazaki made Nausicaa, in some interview magazine, Takahata rated Nausicaa at 30 out of 100. But according to Takahata, he said 30 because everyone was giving the film 100 scores. So I gave him 30 to motivate Miyazaki, believing Miyazaki had the potential to make a greater film in the future. But of course, his message wasn't clear to Miyazaki. But his affection for Takahata still grew. In the past interview, Miyazaki was asked, "What kind of dream do you have when you sleep?" Miyazaki replied, "My dream is only one kind. There's always Takahata." For Miyazaki, Takahata was always goal to surpass and always in his mind. Actually, you can clearly see the influence of Takahata in Miyazaki's film. All his films start setting off a journey, like the first film he made with Takahata. Going back to A Boy and Heron, you might find it's too long to get into the tower in the film. I thought that too, but there's a reason why it took so long for Mahito to get into the tower. Even after 2 years, since Miyazaki started writing the storyboard, he was still struggling to figure out how to draw the uncle. In other words, it took a long time for him to figure out who Takahata actually was to him. Miyazaki didn't feel accepted by Takahata. He was struggling. So after his death, he decided to accept himself. So this is all about how A Boy and Heron was made. When he finished storyboard, Miyazaki said, "I finally buried Takahata." But wait, when I watched the film for the first time, I had no idea about what I just said. Also, I like many people's various views, essays, and guesses about metaphors in this film. So I was wondering if they're all wrong. But I would say no. Any interpretation is right. Miyazaki said, "As I think about this film, it becomes unclear. I just find myself constantly thinking about Takahata." So even Miyazaki himself is unclear about A Boy and a Heron. For me, this film is like Miyazaki's abstract painting on canvas. He just put everything about himself intuitively on the canvas. So it's okay to see metaphors or some hidden message by yourself and find a true meaning of this film for yourself. Like enjoying a painting in a museum. Also, I think that's the core of concept of this film. The Japanese title, How Do You Live? It's like his message saying, "This is how I lived. And you? How do you live?" So having how you watch this film is the right response to his new film. Myself, I found the layer's meaning not explicitly mentioned by Miyazaki. The Heron, for instance, it looks like a character from Osamu Tezuka called Phoenix, reflecting Miyazaki's aspiration and influences. Because I know Miyazaki originally wanted to be a manga artist and admired Tezuka. So Heron was like his inner guide to Takahata's animation tower. Also, I see the malice that is mentioned in the film as earthly desires. I know Miyazaki's animation, well, at least by Ghibli fans in Japan, as being filled with sexual metaphors. So the part where Mahito was talking about malice and showing his scar on his head to the ankle, for me was pretty obvious metaphor for lust. Recent interview from Miyazaki. The true of life isn't glittering, righteous thing. It encompasses muddy and various elements. It's time to pull out the dormant things hidden within oneself and create works. Growing up in Japan, Studio Ghibli's animation were a big part of my childhood. To be honest, I saw them as if they're just film teaching moral lessons and meaning to educate children and slightly hypocritical, to be honest. But I realized that Miyazaki's creation aren't just fantasy for kids, but they're thick layered with metaphors and explore a more complex and cruel aspect of human nature. For me, A Boy and Heron was the most honest film he ever made. So actually, I really loved the film. I enjoyed it a lot. According to a recent comment from an executive officer at the Ghibli, Miyazaki is trying to clear his mind. For me, it sounds like Miyazaki is thinking of making new film already. If that's so, I'm really excited. Actually, Miyazaki changed his name after this movie. So, A Boy and Heron is his statement that he's saying goodbye to Takahata and accepting the new Miyazaki himself. So, this is basically how I see this film. And now I'm curious about how do you see the film? Let me know your thought in a comment. You have a wonderful day and stay safe and peace.